Welcome back to On the Light. In today's episode, Lee and I had the pleasure of talking with Neeta Datta. Neeta is one of the few people who was fortunate enough to be able to study with Guruji from a very young age. Her father began taking classes from Guruji in the 70s and encouraged her and her siblings to go to yoga class. Neeta was a reluctant teenager who didn't want to go, but as you will hear her say, from that very first class with Guruji, she was hooked. Neeta shares many memories of Guruji that speak to his kindness, his sensitivity, and forward thinking. Please enjoy this episode of On the Light. There we are.
Hi.
Hi, now
Hi,
we're on.
Neeta.
Hi, how are you? Oh my gosh, so long. I mean, I think last I was trying to recollect, we met at Guruji's 95th birthday.
It's
Yeah.
just a shame. It's just a shame it's been so long.
It's been a while.
Susan, you should know that one of the great things in my life is after Neeta had stayed with us for some days or different times over the years, and she wasn't used to having dogs in the house. And we had Samson and Achilles, of course. And because, they just didn't have him, and she was a little timid with the dogs. And one day she just, all of a sudden it broke through and she said to me, Lee, now I understand this thing with humans and dogs. And, the dogs would she'd be sitting on the couch and they'd be laying their head on her lap, and it was the sweetest thing.
Believe it, even to this day, I mean, this was a childhood thing that I would be scared of dogs. I mean, I don't know, scared because my neighbor's dog apparently was my age when I was little. And of course, he died at 14, but until then, and his way of communicating, which you guys know, but I wouldn't know, was barking. And for me, barking was the scariest thing. And every time I went there, they wanted to play with me, and the dog wanted to play with me. But oh my gosh, to this day, my kids tease me because they love dogs. But I mean, now I'm not scared of them. I know I can pet them, do things, but after that, I don't know what to do because it's not natural for me,
Yeah.
It's not coming from me, inside of me. It's like coming from here. And I noticed this, and my kids are like, Mommy, you are just something else. We have to just bring a dog, then you'll be able to understand. I'll tell you how we met, Lee and I. But I mean, of course, it's all through Guruji. But when they used to invite me every other day to teach, I mean, every other year to teach, something like that, right, Lee?
Yeah.
Frequently, I used to come but almost every other year. And I think in 93, when Guruji was in Ann Arbor, and my kids were old enough to recognize or know of Lee and Kristen. And when they found out, oh, Mommy, you're going to Minneapolis, or anytime I travel, who'll take care of you? Their biggest concern was who'll take care of me. And so when I told them I'm going to see Kristen and Lee, and they're taking, oh, okay, if they are good people, if they're taking care of you, it's okay, you can go. Because I think at the time my younger one was close to 3 or 2.5 or 3, and the older one was obviously 1.5 years apart. So 4.5, and they were so happy. They felt so relieved that they don't have to worry about Mommy eating food.
Sweet.
So yeah, it's going long back in time. Anyway, so I'm really happy you're doing this. I want to let people know that when we are talking about a person like Guruji, or for that matter, anyone, but more especially Guruji, what happens is all of us, we are not like, my word would be not like Sanjay. Now, who is Sanjay? You may not know. So in Mahabharat, there is this, you know of Mahabharat, I assume.
Yes.
Okay. So in Mahabharat, there is this war which is going to take place between the two, the cousins. So Pandavas and Kauravas. The war is taking place in Kurukshetra. Okay. The battlefield is Kurukshetra, which is far away from the capital or the place where the blind king Dhritarashtra was. Okay. Now, Dhritarashtra cannot see, but he needs to know what's happening on the battlefield.
Mhm.
I mean, obvious. So what happens is, so there was one chance where he was asked that he, for a short period of time, he can have eyes, vision to see what's happening, but he refuses. Maybe he was scared, whatever his reasons, we don't know. Or I don't know. I don't remember. But Sanjay is the one who is now going to, or who was assigned the task or takes up the task to actually relay what's happening on the battlefield in Kurukshetra to the king in Hastinapur. Okay. Now, the
Mhm.
difference is if I or you or others would, generally what we will have is we will have our biases come in, our
Mhm.
perspectives come in, our experiences, which will mold our thinking to the
Yeah.
biases. You understand? So all these things take place. And I want to kind of let people know that when anybody, when any one of us, because we still, we are human beings, we are not to that caliber of Sanjay. So what happens is that anything we say, it will still have our biases, our perspectives, our experiences, which will change, I mean, kind of modify.
Mhm.
Okay, doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but this is what it is. And so it's really important to understand this from whoever is the interviewee, the interviewer, because these things are bound to happen. So I
Yeah.
just feel it's important for the listeners to know.
Yes.
Okay, so that's something I wanted to kind of say. I hope it's okay.
Absolutely. I think it's important that you say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, we all have our own perspective of things and our own version of the truth, if you will. We all,
Yes. Oh, yes.
through our filters, we have our own version of how things happen. So,
Exactly, our filters, and that's really important because that's why if I am in, and we've seen this in day-to-day life, if I'm in a happy state of mind or you're in a happy state of mind, that same incident which would have taken place if you were unhappy or in a different state of mind,
yeah,
what you would see, what would you think of it would be totally different. So all these things matter, and it's important for people to know
yeah,
because, especially because we're talking about yoga and a person like Guruji, as great as Guruji, because if I have some negativity, it's going to show up, and I feel that's not what he was. You see what I'm trying to say?
I do see what
Yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
well,
Thank you for saying that. Why don't we start by just going back to I don't know a lot about your family's like history with the Iyengars. Can you start with that?
so my father was the one who got us introduced or started us
Okay.
to Guruji's classes. So one day he just comes. So it's very incidental that my father met a person on the road in Bombay, like some Western guy, German guy, and he asked my father for direction. And so my father, guided him. And then somewhere along, they were talking, and it comes out that he's going to go, he wants to meet Mr. Iyengar, the yoga teacher, the yoga guru. At the time, it was just Mr. Iyengar, yoga teacher.
Mm-hmm.
That's how people knew him. And so he asks my father, and my father had this from his mother. He had this he used to do yoga, whatever was yoga as a kid, because his mom sent him to a gym,
Okay.
akhada, they call it akhada. So that's where he was sent. And so my father had this natural liking for yoga from childhood. And
Mhm.
when this person talks about a person teaching yoga, he decides to, okay, I'll take you there. And he takes him to see Guruji. This may be in Bombay or Pune, I don't know, because we were kids. But he takes him to see Guruji, my father. And of course, my father asks Guruji if he could if he could join his classes. And so Guruji says yes. And that's how my father started. The German person was refused. He never basically got to study with Guruji. But he became the means for my father to start yoga with
Okay.
Guruji. Okay. Then what happens is 3, 4 years down the road, my father asks Guruji, because we were teenagers and we had our whatever habits. My father asks Guruji if he could bring his children, like son and daughter. And so Guruji says, yes, I cannot refuse. I mean, this was very interesting. So he says yes. And so the next weekend, of course, very reluctantly, with all the arguments that you could give, we could get away with, but we didn't get away with any, actually. Lee's laughing. He knows my father too. I mean, knew him. So
This is
anyway,
one of the most wonderful men you would ever meet, Susan. He was just the sweetest guy.
Okay.
He always made Kristen and me feel so comfortable and so welcome, and we loved him.
so
Sorry to interrupt.
no, that's what it is. I want Lee to be there. So anyway, so my father, I mean, we being reluctant teenagers, we had all the excuses, believe me. I had my shares of excuses. Birju, my brother, younger brother, had his share of excuses. But of course, we were not able to go, even tackle my dad's firm, rigid thing that you are going. And he asked us to do some things like Uttanasan, not asan. He says, touch your toes. And I barely managed. And of course, my brother couldn't even do that. He's taller. And so my father says, you are both going. So there. It was like, this we call. We went. But this is, for me, it's very true. I mean, Birju will tell his whenever, but for me, it was like the once I attended that class with Guruji, it was never that not even for a moment did I feel why I'm here, or, I mean, it was like I was just mesmerized with Guruji. And, and contrary to whatever people you may have heard sometimes from people, for me, it was really where Guruji was so warm, so kind, so open. Just the fact that we were there, I think, as kids, or maybe he saw something. I don't know. That's what his perspective was for us. I don't know. But he was always, at least as far as my memory goes, always so kind and so encouraging. That was important because I still remember, like, there was one class, maybe a month from me joining, and I think we were doing Ardha Chandrasan. Month means you are doing Ardha Chandrasan maybe second time in your life, second class, not second time. And I'm doing Ardha Chandrasan because Guruji asks us. I mean, he's giving the instructions. I'm trying to follow because the good thing is at that age, uh, you listen to everything, you follow everything. If you are, really, you are capable of doing it because your mind is so clear, you're just there. And so what would happen is, I still remember it because he praised me. I remember it because he praised me at the time, and that was important at the time, okay? So what he says is, he says, here, she's a newcomer and she is doing Ardha Chandrasan. She can do it. And you guys cannot. I mean, I know today that was just encouraging me. But at the time, I was surely super happy. So you see what I'm saying? He knew. He knew how to encourage us, I guess. And so for me, it was the first class. Before going, yes, we had all our arguments. After going, none. And then, so that's how Birju and I started. A few years later, so my parents would always go to all the functions in Pune because 60th birthday was happening soon after. My mother and father would go. We were asked to go sometimes, for some picnics and stuff. So Birju and I would go. Both my sisters are younger. So then a few years later, Rajvi joins, Rajvi from Yoga Rahasya, the editor. And then a few years later, Arti joins. And in between, Guruji was just to tell my mom, you do yoga. And my mom said she would do yoga, but she was too shy. She was such a shy lady because for her to change from sari to an outfit for yoga was a huge thing. So she was very, it wasn't reluctant, it was just shyness. And then anyway, she comes out of it, and then she does join. So she was perhaps, as far as I remember, the last person to join Guruji's classes. But that's how we started. So my family started thanks to my father, and then we all basically followed.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's somewhere it was, blessings from the universe. That's how we ended up. But at the time, there was nothing like Iyengar yoga, or that name wasn't even there. It was funny because back in 84 is when, so we started in 75, end of 75, really, like November, December.
Okay.
And in 84, I think, is when they had this Iyengar Yoga, International Yoga Convention in San Francisco. And that's when Birju and Jawar were basically, they had come. And when they returned is when we first found out that in the West, what Guruji teaches is called Iyengar Yoga. That's the first time we came across, and we were all so shocked and surprised. Oh, that's what it is called, really.
Yeah.
So it was just yoga for us.
Yeah.
So that's how we actually started.
And it was just yoga for him. Not
I know.
yoga.
I know.
Everything that Prashant is teaching us, because he's teaching us so much these days, is
Yeah.
yoga. I
Yeah.
mean, we keep calling it Iyengar yoga, but he's teaching us yoga.
No, it was. And so for us, it was just that. I mean, like I said, eventually, of course, it comes to India, and but the first time we actually heard the word also, Iyengar yoga, was when Birju comes home and he says, "Oh, in all the Western countries, they call it Iyengar yoga." And so it was a real surprise for us because we didn't know all these things. We were so shielded, I guess, from everything else at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's innocence. It's just being innocent.
yes,
which
yes.
which is a really good thing to do, to be. It's a really good trait to have.
I know.
A kind of an innocence when you're introduced to something.
Yes, that's true. That's really true, Lee. Yeah.
Actually, Guruji was teaching the ladies' class one day so many years ago, or he broke in, when Gita was teaching, and Gita had a kind of a Western woman, athletic woman, going back and forth, halasana, paschimottanasana, halasana, paschimottanasana, and being very athletic about it. And Guruji stopped things, and he took one of the elderly ladies in the class, and the sweetest woman, and she just did, he asked her to do it, and she did it in her way, no showing off. And Guruji turned and looked at us, and he said, "Now you see the difference between innocence and ignorance."
But he brought it out to us like through these visual examples.
I'm sorry, I'm not aware of all of this. Who are all of the siblings in your family?
So I'm the oldest. Birju is my younger brother. I don't know, but if you were at the convention in 2013 in San Diego, that's when Birju
taught. Yes, I was there. I was there.
So that was Birju who led the convention. Yeah. Then Rajvi is my younger sister, who is the one who is the editor and of Yoga Rahasya. And then Aarti is the youngest, and she basically, of course, all of us teach yoga. I mean, it is not like it was the main thing for us, but eventually it becomes like we were all in pretty much a lot of us involved in yoga. And Aarti basically does teach a lot of those people with, well, you can say disabilities or need extra help, kids which need extra help. So, she was teaching in blind school, people with kids with disabilities. And there was, at one point, she had even, I think, Guruji's one of the birthday celebration, whether it was 90th. I don't remember because I wasn't there. And she did the demonstration with all the kids. And this means all means including the kids which needed extra help. But she took all of them together. And as far as the video I saw, I don't think there was a single student where you could say this one was not normal. Normal is all the way we kind of classify. It's not
Yeah.
normal or abnormal, but someone who can do everything, because the only criteria she chose for these kids was that their parents should send them and not stop them from coming for practice for those 2 months, 2 days
Mhm.
or so. That was the only criteria. And if the parents signed that, those kids were asked to come. And what is very interesting about this particular situation was that I don't know why, but Aarti, I mean, she's very, very not just popular, all kids love, whether it's
Mhm.
my kids or my brother's kids or neighbors' kids or anybody, they just love her. It's just her personality or
Mhm.
the way she is. And so this is not contained in this just familial situation, but even in school, even in schools where these kids are autistic or have other problems,
Yeah.
all these kids love her. So, I mean, I have seen it when I would be in Mumbai and I bump into some parent and I saw one lady literally, tears rolling, and she said, every teacher complained about my son. But Aarti ma'am, that's because that's how they talk to the teachers. Aarti ma'am, with you, you are the only one where you're not just praising him, but he loves it. And Aarti would tell them, if you have to come to this yoga practice, if you had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning to finish your homework, if your parents say you haven't finished your homework, you are not coming.
Mhm.
So that was their responsibility, not parents. And the mother said, my son, who had never done any of these things, would get up in the morning, do his work just to attend these classes with her, the practice sessions with her.
That's
So
pretty special.
amazing. I cannot even tell you. I know she's my sister, but I don't think I could have done something like this. So I
I would
mean,
really like to talk with her as well. That sounds like a really special lady.
She is. And Neeta, you're talking to a school teacher here.
I,
Yeah.
I, I, I forgot for a moment, but yes, I know. You are a school teacher. So, I mean, how to, especially fifth graders means there's going to be fifth graders, right? I think I
Yes,
heard
that's right.
someone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, definitely it's a lot of, I think you have to be very creative, right?
Yes. Yeah. I don't do as much yoga with my students as I would like
Uh-huh.
because number one, I don't have the space. Number two, our schedule's very tight. And then also I find when we start doing it, they get very silly and it's like
But that's kids. You have to
I,
actually let them
it is,
be.
that is kids. But maybe I could learn some things from your sister about how to.
Yeah. So no, Aarti doesn't do it for schools. She does it for the special schools for kids with special
Yes.
disabilities.
Yes, I understand.
And people, older folks with special disabilities. So it's not like in school. But
Mhm.
yeah, with school, I know because even I had done it because Guruji had asked me to, like, kind of. So, but with school, you have to be just like half an hour, you make them do 60 poses, 70 poses, and you keep on. You're the one getting tired. They don't get tired. So if you do back to back 5 classes, they'll do one class and go away.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So that's different. But yeah.
You started taking classes with Guruji when you were quite young. At what point did you start teaching, and was he sort of instrumental in that, or did it just kind of happen?
Okay. So I started in, like I said, end of 75. But I think by 78, so actually, this is what happened. Like I said, my father used to take us, so we used to go with him. When we went with my dad, we went in a taxi, by a taxi to the yoga class. But there were days when my father wouldn't be able to come for whatever reasons, work reasons, whatever. So when he wouldn't come, Birju and I would take the bus.
Mm-hmm.
So when so you go to the bus stop, you wait at the bus stop, and it so happened that where Guruji used to live in that hotel, which was very close to our place, which of course at the time we didn't know. And Jawahar's father used to pick up Guruji from the hotel and he would take Guruji to the yoga class because he was attending the yoga class. And so one day, Guruji and I were standing at the bus stop, and Guruji sees us. And Guruji tells Jawar's dad, he says, "Hey, Hasmukh's kids are here. Stop the car." Like, wait, let's pick them up. This was Guruji. He was super considerate as a person and very, very kind. But this is what he was. So so anyway, they stopped the car, and then, of course, Birju and I come in, and then, of course, Guruji is chatting away with us. So for Birju and I, like conversations out of yoga classes were many. Not once in a while. There were many, because there were many times my father wouldn't come. Many times we are at the bus stop. As many times we would be picked up, and then Guruji would chat, and I was a chatterbox, which you can see now. So it was easy. It was easy. So when Guruji finds out that, oh, so what are you doing on Saturday, Sunday? So I was already an undergrad student. Well, yeah, when I started, I was already an undergrad student. And so he asks me one day, like, I just finished my undergrad and I started my master's. I don't remember. It was kind of in that time. And Guruji says, "So what are you doing on Saturdays?" So I'm like, for now, nothing. Because it was like, it was that transitional phase. So nothing like, nothing solid, like I'm doing something. So Guruji says, "Start coming and start helping me, assisting me." I'm like, okay. I had no clue what is assisting. Again, ignorance or naivety or innocence, I don't know. But so I say, yes, okay. So I go, and for 2, 3 months, I did nothing other than walk behind Guruji. No, I actually didn't do that. I actually did the class on Saturday. So we used to go Sunday mornings, by the way. So Guruji used to come from Pune every Saturday afternoon around by Deccan Queen. So he would be there about 10, 11 o'clock. And then he'd go to the chairman's office, Madhubai Tijoriwala, which Lee must know. So to his office, he was a solicitor, and he was exactly the same age as Guruji, 3 months older.
Okay.
And so Guruji would sit there and, chat with him, and sure, they might have some food and all that. And then 2 o'clock or 2:30, whatever, he had the Saturday evening class. Okay. So some people came on Saturday evening, attended Saturday 2 to 4 or whatever, 2:30 to 4:30 class. And later somebody would take him, or of course, Madhubai would have some, there were many clubs in Bombay. So they'd take him for, snacks or dinner, or sometimes people invited him over. And so they would be going there. And then and then of course they drop him to the hotel where he used to live. And Sunday morning we had a 7 o'clock class. So my family, at least, my father, Birju and I, we would be attending morning classes, 7 o'clock. So that day when Guruji tells me, okay, so I go there, I find out the time, I go there at 2:30 or 2 o'clock. Didn't know what to do. So I'm just doing the class, and Guruji patiently lets me do the class, the Saturday afternoon class. This goes on for 2, 3 months because I didn't know anything. And realize this, Susan, I was basically one of those age groups. So Jawar was, of course, 6, 7 years older than me. But Jawar never really, I mean, so he used to attend this, I didn't even know him. He used to attend the Saturday classes. But most people who were there were the older age group, and my group was like, we were the younger generation. So I was kind of not really old enough to be in the older people's group. So I didn't know what to do, nothing. There was like Dan Palkiwala, you may have heard of Lee. So, but she would come once in a while to assist Guruji, but that was also very, very rarely. She wasn't regular, so I didn't know. Uh, and she would come. So I had no clue. So basically, I would just be doing the class, not realizing what I have to do, until the second month or third month, Guruji tells me, "Neeta, I want you to assist me." And so, okay, Guruji. And so basically, I have to watch him. And so I started watching him. I started following him, like literally shadowing him, in that sense, because I didn't know. But what happened is, now I realized, to even be able to observe, I have to actually practice. So 3 years, my practice was okay, between my studies and schooling, everything else, and your quote unquote little bit of social life, which is with friends, etc., there was not much time where you would make time to practice. You can have time, but we didn't make time to practice, or I didn't make time to practice for 3 years. But by 78, which is by the time I had even, yeah, I had finished my undergrad. Actually, I finished my grad school at 78. I done it. Everything was a little faster for me. So by that time, Guruji had already asked me to assist. So in between, before 77, 78. So within 3 years, 2, 3 years, I was already assisting, but I didn't know. So now I started practicing. By 78, I finished my grad school and my brother finished his undergrad school and he comes home. So that's when we start practicing together.
Okay.
Something, my years maybe 1 or 2 here or there, but that's what happens. And so we started practicing together. We started observing, and so that's when actually, because it's a responsibility, because Guruji asks you to assist. You don't know what to do. You just follow him. You hear, you. Of course, there were a lot of things I learned along the way, and one of the important thing was to learn to observe, and which I did. But along with observation, there was a lot of things I needed to know for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so my practice became, and it was not just my practice, it's two of us together more often, so that we would practice, we would discuss, we would say, this is how I feel. What do you think? How am I doing? Because I couldn't see, I couldn't feel that much. If I'm crooked, also, I wouldn't know, you see? So those kind of things. So that's how we started practicing. Then this is interesting. Then a couple of years later, or a year later, I don't know, somewhere Guruji must have. Okay, oh, now I think I'm getting my numbers straight. So I think within 2 years, Guruji must have asked me, because by the time I completed grad school, my professor wanted me to start, to take up a job as teaching assistant in college.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to my dad about it. And and I didn't know. This Guruji and my father must have talked. Now, what happened is these classes were in a school, Campion School, and in the gym of Campion School. The gym was on the 5th floor. The yoga room where we used to practice, or Guruji would teach, was on the 5th floor. So everyone used to climb up the stairs because that's what you do. There was a lift, elevator. And so Guruji and my father go in the elevator. They just happen to be there together. So they go in the elevator. And when they go, Guruji must have told my father, which I didn't know until much later, Asmuk, give me your daughter. And my father says, she's yours. I mean, this is just the way they talked, okay? There's nothing, don't take it any other way. It's just the
I
way.
understand.
And so I had no clue, of course, but the moment I said this is what, and then he even told me, because my college was farther away from the city, and he said there's another position in another college which is close to where we live. So, and my father's like, and what do you intend to do after that? I said, well, I haven't decided, because I hadn't decided. So I say, well, I think I'll do something. I mean, but I didn't decide it because I wasn't really excited about teaching per se. So he says, I would rather that you continue, go deeper into the practice of yoga, because there you will get satisfaction, which you won't get when you just teach students at the colleges.
Mm.
Okay. So this is what he told me. So I said, okay, I'll look into that. And then, I mean, it makes sense eventually, because you realize that, okay, and I was definitely enjoying my, practice and even the time with Guruji. So there was always that little bit of, the joy which was there. So maybe it made sense to me at the time. Then what happens is Guruji asks me to, or actually, yeah, he asked me to attend the intensive classes. Again, ignorant. I had no clue what are intensives, which the whole Western world knew, but obviously I didn't know, because I was really not into all these things where I needed to know these things. So Guruji says, okay, I want you to start, come to Pune for a month or 3 weeks, and you will come for that, the classes. I didn't even know it was called intensives. And he says, you'll come for these classes. And, I really completely. And where will I stay? Oh, you stay at the institute. Everything is, between my dad and Guruji, it is taken care of. And so I go to Pune. I start with those classes. The first class itself. And these normally, at the time, Guruji would not be teaching in Pune, regular classes. He would be teaching intensives. I didn't know all this. This was by 1980, 81.
Mhm.
Yeah. And so I go there because Guruji asks me to. And there's a room downstairs and I'm sharing it with another woman. And yeah, I'm there. And after those, I don't remember whether it's 2 hours or 3 hours. Even if it was 2 hours, it must have felt like 3 hours because my body was exhausted.
Mhm.
So anyway, I go there. I do this whatever Guruji asks us to do. It was a South African intensive. So most people were South African people, very very quiet. They were completely to themselves, more because of the political reasons, I would think. They wouldn't really mix with people. At the time, South Africa
Yeah.
was different situation.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were very quiet. They were sweet, nice people, nothing. But anyway, and I started doing, and every time I do, believe it or not, I used to have, if you something like your Tiger Balm, Iodex, or Salon, and I would literally be rubbing it all over my body because my body was so sore. I'd never done so much yoga in my life. So I was that sore every single day, morning, evening.
Mm.
And then, but it was very interesting. Guruji would just be very, very encouraging, even at the time. I mean, he would make me do a lot of things. He'd say, okay, let's do, drop backs or whatever. And to lift me up, he'd literally, I used to tie two plates and he would literally lift me up with my two plates. There's two plates and he'd lift me up. And I would be like, I'd be in pain. I mean, not in pain at the time. I'd do it and I'd laugh it off. And again, he encouraged me. He says, look at this girl. Every one of you here have cried, but she doesn't cry. And I didn't cry. That's a fact. I could laugh, I could smile, I couldn't cry. Not because I couldn't cry, because I didn't think, it wasn't like where I was sad, something wrong with me that I could cry. But so again, he was encouraging, and I just continued practicing. And yes, and there were times like he knew. It was so funny. There was one day we go for lunch because we thought there's nothing that evening. So we go out for lunch, for a big thali, like a proper meal. And then Guruji asked us to do, come on, Neeta, now we have to go into Sirshasan.
Oh my goodness.
No, we did it. We did it. And it's funny because body didn't bother me. That way it was fine. But the thing is, it's just no awareness. I mean, there was awareness, but it was very light. There was no seriousness there involved. And same way, then later he asks me, Neeta, I want you to start teaching. And I'm like, no. He says again, some months later, I want you to start teaching. No, I'm not teaching.
Mhm.
Then later in 84, he was supposed to come to the US. He tells me. So this happened twice or thrice for sure. And my father's really annoyed at me. A great person like Guruji asking you to teach and you say no. I'm like, no, but I cannot teach, because
Mhm.
I know myself. I knew I'm very impatient, or at least I thought I am very impatient. And I knew I couldn't teach. But then Guruji, before leaving for this convention, he asks me, he says, so there were many, so there is one St. Xavier's College in Bombay. Then there is one, the school in Bombay. There was this another club in Bombay. So all these people were asking, and Guruji said, I want you to teach. Will you teach for my sake? And when he said that, I couldn't refuse.
Mm.
Because he said, when you teach for my sake. And I mean, it was just, I don't know. I just don't know. At that time, I couldn't refuse. And I said, yes, Guruji, I will teach. And I
Okay.
started teaching. Until then, I don't think I would have really off my own. I doubt I would have taken, but who knows, things change. We don't know ourselves also. So
Mhm.
that's how I started teaching.
Mhm. Okay.
So the others eventually, like Birju, when he came to the US in 84, it was different. Guruji just asked him, suddenly throws him there and says, okay, you're going to demonstrate, you're going to do this. So, we were not like you didn't have this teacher training. He trained you all the time without you realizing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he may have known he may be molding me for this, or but I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I started. It's
Um,
different, Susan. Very different from
yeah.
what we are used to.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. At what point, or did you just always know how special he is to the world? Like how, like the greatness of him.
So I don't know about the greatness of the world and Guruji, but like I said, my first time of meeting Guruji and being with Guruji, the very first time changed
Yeah.
my. So it was totally unique for me anyway. Now,
Okay.
now the way I am as a person, it doesn't bother me whether what the whole world thinks. I've never cared. This is
Mm-hmm.
not today, even as a kid. I never cared. So I wasn't one of those. I mean, maybe once in a while, you go through those fear things, but I never went through that either because I never really cared.
Yeah.
So what the world thought of him, or it didn't matter. What I thought of him was very important. He was a person which really, who really had an impact on me.
Yeah.
How, I didn't know because I was too young to know, but I do know that there was something special about him. Now, just to give you a background of the family, I don't know. I mean, it's not that you need to know, but I'm just giving you. I grew up in a family where we were not religious people as religious, but the whole family, my parents, my grandparents, they were all very, very spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
So in many aspects, we grew up where certain values were of a lot of importance to us, not the religious rituals for us, but but the spiritual aspect where you were more about learning about yourself, connecting with others, feeling that um, empathy for others, not even realizing, because you see it in your parents or you see it in your grandparents. So some of these things were so natural for me that and I could almost be sensitive enough to feel what Guruji must have felt for us, in the sense not what he actually felt, but that connection that he must have felt for us, because obviously I could reciprocate in some aspect. You see what I'm saying? So there was those things which were there, which I don't know even how to, but I know it is difficult for many people to understand.
Yeah.
But we grew up in that situation. I mean, not situation, with that kind of family background,
Mm-hmm.
where um, how do you call, everything which was external was not really as important. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
was important, but not as important. There was more about what you felt. I mean, if I give you, um, I mean, this is one example which like stuck with me. I remember as a kid, when I told my grandmother something about, oh, so and so does something. And she's like, why does it matter to you? You know, you are you. And she points me here at my, on my sternum, and she says, your soul. This is when I was about 3.5 or 4 years old. And she says, this is your soul. That is who you are. All this will go away. And I remember asking her, Grandma, how come your skin is so soft and so, it separates, because, older people. And she says, this goes away. This doesn't stay with you. I mean, you are talking to about a 4 or 5 year old, that
Yeah.
this goes away, doesn't stay. What stays with you is what you are, is the Atma, the soul. So you see, I mean, even if I didn't understand, there was some things where the priorities were very different for us.
Mm-hmm.
So with the connection with Guruji must have been very easy.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it wasn't like, that's why perhaps I couldn't see what other people saw. Like, oh, he could, like Guruji, said something to you. These things never mattered
Yeah.
because they were never, recognized as a priority in my head.
What his most impactful lessons were that you learned from him?
So, because like I said, with Guruji, it was not just in class. I had a lot of experience and time spent out of class also.
Mhm.
So what I can say is I can give you a couple examples in terms of in class and out of class, which is
Okay, great.
in yoga, it's, not yoga, but in class practice of yoga versus out of class. So the out of class experiences were, one thing was that he was so, it wasn't just compassion. He was a very, like I think I mentioned earlier, he was a very considerate person. And he considered and he was very sensitive to people and the
Mhm.
people's, everything about people, in the sense he was sensitive enough to know if you are faking, if you are seeking attention. And he was also sensitive enough to know when you are genuinely doing something, or in real life, I mean. And so one of the examples I'll give you, Lee is here and he'll remember. So when we were coming, I mean, we were in the I mean, I came with Guruji as a part of his entourage in 87
Mhm.
with Birju and Jawar. And of course, we went to Hawaii, we went to different places, San Francisco, Dallas, and some other places, and we come to Minneapolis. Now, other places also people had prepared meal, or, they took us to a hotel or wherever, restaurant, sorry, restaurant for food, etc., everything. But when we came to Minneapolis, and this is not because Lee's here, okay, Lee, so don't take it in any other way.
Mhm.
But when we went to Minneapolis, and we saw Guruji sees Lee. He has cooked everything Indian meal from the
Mhm.
scratch.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is his sensitivity was so much, he noticed this. And you know what we say back here, my kids would always say, even as kids, even when they were kids, they're not kids anymore. They'll say TLC, food prepared with TLC, tender
Mhm.
loving care. And so that food always, it touches you, it helps you. Digestion is easy, everything is easy, okay? It's just that way. Now, when Guruji sees Lee, he knows he's put in effort. He knows he's doing everything. And it is, you don't have to say anything. It was just totally appreciated, but it's not in words, in all aspect. And I'll tell you this. I still remember, Lee, you were rolling, whether chapatis, para, I don't know, but you were rolling something. And that to me is amazing, because even my kids, Arun, anybody in the family, women, yes, especially from where I come from, we roll chapatis like this, and they're very thin and, a lot. So it's easy for us. But men generally, not because they are men, but because they've never done it. It's a difficult task. That's what I mean. Okay. So there are those who will do it. We have cooks, that those are men, so they do it. But what I'm trying to say is that's a difficult task. And here Lee has taken this task upon himself to actually make chapatis, not only the other things. And Indian cooking is not easy, it's time consuming. When Guruji sees that, he's not that he's appreciated Lee, he's gone way beyond that. And he notices that this is also trying it. And he asks me, Neeta, can you just go and help? Of course. And so I don't know. I mean, I did teach you, I helped you, I don't know. But that's the first time we really, really connected with each other. But the point is, this little thing, same way I'll tell you, when we were in France, same trip, we continue on, we go to France, and every single day at Bidya's place, because that's where we were, and this is, there were about, I think, 18, 20 people. Every evening we would sit for dinner together, and one student from whichever ethnicity, because even there it's cosmopolitan. So whichever ethnicity would make food and bring it. And sure, most of the times, each and every one made food. Okay, so it was homemade food. So, and we were there for, I don't know, 10, 12 days or more. I really don't remember, because we were going to travel other places in Europe. And then Guruji said, let's not do that. Let's have them come over. So our trip was extended in Paris itself, rather than us going all over. So now all these people are bringing food, and Guruji felt, what can we do, for them? It's like something we can do for them, right? Now, he was, as a guru, doing a lot no matter what. You see what I'm saying? But that wasn't, he just says. So he asks, Neeta, can you? I said, yes, Guruji. Again, there was this, either stupidity or ignorance. I say, yes, what will you make? And I talked to Birju and I will make dosa. Believe me, you don't get dosa batter. Today you get batters, it seems, all over, but we didn't get batters. So you start from getting rice, getting lentils, start finding the right kind of grinder to grind enough batter for 20 people, make chutney. You understand? It was an adventure. It was fun. It was totally fun. But my point is, these little things he noticed when people did so much, how can we do something for them? To appreciate them. You understand? That kindness in him. I'll give you another example. When we went to visit him, it was always, you were always welcome. Not only welcome, but they welcomed you. Like if you were in the library, you'd get coffee, you'd get tea, whatever. Also, when you left, I know the first time, every time I used to leave, before leaving for the US, I would go to see Guruji. If Arun was there, the two of us went to see Guruji. If the kids were there, I mean, afterwards, kids were there, we'd go. Every time he knew when we went for the last visit before we left for US, believe it or not, he would come out to the gate of the institute to say bye.
Oh. Lee's not
Most,
that.
eventually, when he got real older, it's different. But what I'm trying to say is today, I sometimes feel people should be taught these things where they close the door in front of your face.
Yeah.
See, but these things were so important. These little things I learned from Guruji. I mean, I'm just saying this, considerate, the sensitivity part of it that he had for people. So during the San Diego convention, I was pregnant with my son, and I was like eight months or above pregnant. Okay, and Guruji knew we used to be in Southern California. It was about an hour's drive from the convention hall to my place. And Guruji knew because he had come over the first time. But prior to that, he knew that I was in the area, but I would be going back and forth because my in-laws were with us. So Guruji, this is much later, but Guruji apparently tells some of the organizers to have a room in the hotel. Okay, so there was this convention center where the convention was being held. Guruji and the entourage were living at somebody's place, which was far away. So they had a room close to the convention center, relatively close to the convention center, hotel. So they had a room there or few rooms, I don't remember. But there was a room, main suite, basically. And then Guruji even tells these organizers, some of the organizers, that they have another room or something for me so that I can rest. I mean, all these things are something I come to know much later, believe it or not. I didn't even know. And sure enough, that room was used by everyone because it was like even the other members of the entourage would get tired or people would be chatting away or talking, eating, whatever. Give Guruji space to rest. So, but the point is, this sensitivity, how many people would have? So these are the things I learned from by observing him or perhaps by learning from him. Now, in class, what did I learn? So in class, I learned the one thing which was really, really important was teach to the students in front of you. You are going to go not for to satisfy your ego. He didn't say these things. He would say later, but he would basically get us to understand this without even saying. Sometimes he would say to other people also that you teach the people in front of you. So if I have a student or 10 students who are at one level and the other student level in the sense are not capable of doing certain poses. And then there are many who are able to do a lot more because of years of practice or because, any reason. What do? Will you just ignore these? Or would you just keep the other ones ignored? So it was important that you teach the students in front of you. You start with a base and you lift those up and bring them in par with the people who were already at that stage and continue on. And I will give you examples. I mean, I won't specify it, or if you want, I will. But like, especially 2005, most of the people who would be hearing this, or you, because Lee would be there for everything. But for you, Susan, I assume if you were there, or if you've watched videos of 2005 convention when Estes Park, you would know Guruji, when he taught, he would tell people Trikonasana, Parshvakonasana, all the asanas. You started with the base, and then on the third day, I remember him telling, okay, now when I start, he's telling me, Adho Mukha Svanasana, we've done twice previous days. He says, Neeta, now let's go. Let's go, not from the base. Let's continue now. So you forget now, you don't forget means you don't have to repeat all the instructions, because you've done it 2 days in a row, or the teachers have done it 2 days in a row. And now you continue with and go on, bring them to a higher level. You understand? So you're not stuck there. Your growth is important, but start where you give them that stable foundation. That foundation has to be strong. And Lee, you remember the Adho Mukha Svanasana. I don't know how many minutes we did, but my hands were, of course, this was wood floor. There were the sticky mess shaking, I mean, moving, and Lee comes to my rescue.
I remember that. I was there.
Remember that? Okay.
I remember it very well, because I had a lot of empathy for all of you who were up there holding that pose for so long. And
no, there was, oh my gosh, there was so much. It was so, I'll tell you, it's very interesting. I'm sure I was exhausted. Exhausted means physically there is exhaustion because body cannot take it. But there is a lot of okay, it might sound weird, but there is this lot of joy for me, and I'll tell you why. Because for me, again, this will be different from most people. For me, it was like, here I am in the shelter of my guru. So even if I were to make any mistake, he's there to help me out. Whereas what I saw in others, but it was more like trying to show something.
Yeah.
And for me, that is ignorance, because your guru is like your, like your father, grandparent, where they know you. They know you, they know your strong points, strongholds, the weaknesses in you. They know everything. You don't have to hide, and you don't have to show them something. Okay? But for me, it was such a blessing that, okay, now today, when I'm teaching a class, I have to be responsible, totally responsible for each and every word I say. But at the time, not that I'm irresponsible, but I know that I am sheltered. I'll be taken care of because I have Guru. But yes, Lee was there, and it was, oh my God, I was so thankful. Lee, bless you. And then the funny thing is, when Guruji, after the convention, he comes, he came straight to San Francisco, and he's coming to my house. And so when we go to meet him, pick him up at the airport, and he's in the car, and he asks me, so, how was it? I mean, Guruji, what are you asking me? How was it? It was, this is Guruji. I'm sure Lee may have experienced it. I don't know. And he's asking me, how was it, Guruji? What can I tell you? How was it? And then he says, so, did you see? I gave you 40 whatever minutes to teach. I wanted people to know what it is. What is this? So the Guru Shishya Parampara was established at the time for people to see. It wasn't established, that's not the right word, but he actually showed that to people. If they were, able to understand, that's good. If they were not, because there was, but you could see that resonance, that, the reciprocation. And so he tells this, and I'm like, I'm just laughing because I don't have anything to say. What do I say?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was true. Basically, what I'm trying to say is he was very, very, that sensitivity was there. And I'll give you another example of sensitivity. It's not sensitivity, but how do I say it? It is this part. Oh yeah, he was in the moment, which you may have always seen. He was in the moment. So one day in San Diego, after one of the, I don't remember whether it was just evening, we were sitting there, or it was after the convention had begun. Those things are not important. It didn't stay with me. But what did stay with me was after dinner, and we were sitting, and Guruji says, "Hey, Neeta, I want you to teach the pregnant women class." Susan, I am 8 months pregnant. Perhaps the only pregnant woman who was this far out. Okay, like in my pregnancy. The second person was Aryan, but she may be 2-3 weeks behind me, and the others were all, nothing like me. And I'm looking at Guruji. I'm literally looking at Guruji. I'm like, Guruji. And he's like, yes, think of the effect it is going to have on people, the impact. I want you to teach. I said, okay. And so I go, I teach this pose. I mean, not the pose. So right away, the organizers were asked to ask all those pregnant women who were there to attend the pregnant women class for pregnant women by me, basically Neeta teaching. And so there was a time when I'm teaching all, but fortunately what happened is there were teachers, male teachers who were also there because they wanted to learn how to teach pregnant women. So which was a blessing for me, because then I could take all these women for, going to Adho Mukha Prakshasan, handstand, because I had these guys who I could ask them, help them in these poses. And so Guruji passes by, he just smiles, he walks away. As a part of entourage, following, he sees, he walks away. Later, I think I was teaching them Baddha Konasana, and Guruji comes into the class. And in the moment, he smiles, he says, and then he asks, okay, get a block, everyone. And then he makes them do Parshva Baddha Konasana. And until then, I had never seen Parshva Baddha Konasana before. Never. Okay?
Turning to the side in Baddha Konasana?
Parshva Baddha Konasana, like you sit in Baddha Konasana and turn to your side. I'd never seen that before until then. This is, I'm talking back in that time. And so of course, Guruji teaches and how does it feel? And of course, I do it. I know it feels good. So if I feel good, I know the others are going to feel good, and, everything continued. Later, I asked Guruji, did you just think of that pose at the time and you did it? And he smiles. He says, yes, I saw it. I saw you guys. This would help you guys. What I'm trying to say, he was always in that moment. He was so clear. And he would explain this to us in Shavasana, that you have to be in the moment, not in the movement of moments, which is time. So, this is what it is. This is what I'm trying to say. It was so spontaneous, and that in that split second, he just says, even this decision was made in split second, and then people just follow. People follow because there is a lot of, and it was just amazing. You could see the effect, you could feel the effect, and this is what. So I learned these things, and I learned, I don't know how far, but I did learn something, pick up something, and the observation skills for sure. Because you realize that without that, you cannot be a practitioner of yoga for sure. Because you cannot connect this way with yourself and not feel, not observe, be spontaneous in that sense, it would be difficult. So, yeah. So those are the things I learned from Guruji. I mean, many, but I'm just giving you in class and out of class.
Lee, do you want to add on to any of that?
I will say something about Guruji's, this consideration and this kindness that Neeta has talked about. This spread down through his pupils as well. It's a common trait among the Indian people to have this kind of consideration for us, for these other people who have come to their country. It's certainly, it's a trait of the entire Mehta family, all of the members of Neeta's family, her birth family. And this consideration, we had a bus ride out to, I think we were going to Missouri, long bus ride, and up in the hills, the mountains, heading up into the foothills of the Himalayas, and all of those, the bus ride with the switchback turns where it looked like from if you were riding somewhere on the bus, it looked like the driver was driving you right off the mountain to the side, right, Neeta?
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they
Scary
would
for
say,
people who are not used to.
yeah, really bad. And Kristen she had some ill effects. Kristen is a tough girl and a real trooper, but she had some ill effects, and we got to the place and the hotel room. Well, one place we were resting for a while. Jawahar and Shah had a hotel room, and the rest of us were just sort of waiting. And they cleared out of their hotel room and they gave it over to Kristen so that she could have a place to lie down and to recover from the ill effects of the drive. And
Yeah.
that comes, like I say, we see that commonly in the Indian people, and we saw that certainly in Guruji and down through the people who were close to him.
So basically, we have this saying, Atithi Devo Bhava. Atithi is guest, and a guest is like Devo. Devo means like, God, kind of. I'm just loosely translating. Dev. So it is the incarnation of Dev that is coming to your house. Dev means incarnation of God that is coming to your house. So you always welcome. You don't know when God will be at your place. The God can be in form of Christian for him at the time, for Jawar and Shah. And so you welcome. I mean, this is one way of looking at it. I'm not saying so. That's why many Indians would be very much that way. But it doesn't mean everyone is, but many will be. Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah.
I love these stories. I had never heard that story about Kristen and the bus.
There's lots to know always, right?
Oh, she'll be mad at me for saying that anyway.
How about, obviously Guruji is so important, but we also have these teachers, Geeta ji and Prashant ji, who have taught us so much. What was your relationship like with Geeta ji?
Okay, so like I told you, Guruji asked me to assist him. So I started assisting. This I started somewhere 78, 78 or so, 77. I don't remember, but around that time. But after 81 or 82 is when, this is the reason I don't remember the year, but I do remember that's when Guruji started growing his hair. Do you remember that? So that was 82, 81, 82. And for some reason, Guruji started asking Geetaji and Prashantji to come every alternate week. So if first week, say, Guruji came, the second week it was Geetaji. Third week would be Guruji. Fourth week would be Prashantji. Fifth week would be, if there is a fifth week, Guruji. If not, the first week again would be Guruji. So every alternate week, we would have Guruji come in, and every other once a month, generally, would be Geetaji, and other alternate week would be Prashantji. So that is how they started coming. Okay. Oh. So previously, Bombay is really blessed. And if we didn't take advantage of it, we are stupid. I really feel, because to have all this richness we had, I don't think, because in Pune, eventually, Guruji wouldn't teach as much, is what I was told. Like afterwards, it was mostly Geetaji and Prashantji, and Guruji would be teaching intensives, or once in a while later, he would be sitting in, and then teaching when Geetaji was teaching. But actual classes taught by Guruji, it continued with us for a long time until Prashantji's accident. So Guruji started coming alternate weeks, and Geetaji started coming in Prashantji. Now, again, I didn't know because they were younger. So I would stand and I didn't know what to do. So I would just stand, and then I realized they don't tell me anything. So I don't know, because Guruji would at least tell me sometimes, okay, Neeta, okay, let me go back. What happens is, Bombay, we had only 2 classes a week. Right? We didn't have an institute. We did not have Guruji all 7 days of the week or 5 days of the week. So Guruji would be coming on Saturday, leaving on Sunday, like I told you. So what happened that Saturday, there are people who come to Guruji. There are people, which means regular students, people who need help, people who need therapy. Everyone came on Saturday. Same way, all those who could come on Sunday, whichever days they were allotted by Guruji, they came on Sunday. So which means we had beginner, intermediate, people who have been practicing for years, all those plus the therapy students coming at the same time in one class. Saturday, one class Sunday. Okay. So now what happens? This is how Guruji taught, and that's why perhaps we are used to, where I would never have these different breakdowns like this level 1, level 2, level 3. I still don't, because I feel you can do it because I've seen Guruji. Okay. So anyway, the point is, and also classes are not that huge like in Pune, what we have today. So it's different. So what happens is Guruji would tell me later, later, not in the beginning. He'll say, okay, Neeta, help this person with this or do this, or you know what to do. And then you ask Guruji, Guruji, can I make this person do this? He's come out of this pose or she's come out, or, whatever. There are people which we have never tackled before, like a paralytic person, a young paralytic person, or 33 years old or 32 years old going through paralysis, just recovered. And then Guruji will tell me. So, accordingly, we would do things now that I'm there. And by the time Birju graduated, Guruji asked Birju also to come and help. So one day we would decide, Saturday, say I would go help, then Birju would be doing class. Sunday, Birju would doing. So we switched. But prior to that is when Geetaji and Prashantji started coming. What happened is, oh yeah, Birju graduated 82. But anyway, so what happens now is Prashantji, sorry, they wouldn't ask me. So I didn't know what to do. So then I started doing the class because they didn't ask and I didn't know. And I didn't ask like, Geetaji, what can I do? Because I was like, in some aspect shy, some aspect didn't know what to do. So I just kept quiet. And then few months down, I think a couple of months down the road, Guruji asks me when he comes, he says, hey, Neeta, why are you not assisting Geeta? I said, Geeta, I don't know, Guruji. I just don't know what to do because and I just tell him, I just didn't know what to do. So I'm just doing. He says, that she doesn't keep well. Every time she returns from the trip to Mumbai, she's throwing up. And so I said, sorry, Guruji, I really didn't know. And I'm just like, and it's true, I just didn't know what to do. So I'm standing there. Eventually you join, or you just stand there because you are expecting them to tell you something. On the other hand, she doesn't know that I'm expecting her to say something. And she, I don't know. So there was this no verbal communication at the time in the beginning. But later, after that was it. After that, no matter what, I'll go and ask them. Birju came in later. Yeah, now I remember. I would go and ask them, what can I do? Can I do this? Can I help? But beginning, I felt, how can I ask them? They know more than me. And what do I ask? You see? So there was this, it wasn't like I was running away, but I just didn't know. And I feel, because I remember when Guruji asked me and I just felt horrible because how could I have done this? Like I didn't know. So then I tell Guruji and he says, it's okay. Now, so and after that, I would always ask them and they would tell me. But it took a while. It took a few months for them to tell me and for me to actually ask, what can I do? But that was then. Then with Geetaji, it was very, it was very good relationship, very close, very close. For the longest time, I feel it was very, very close. And she would talk about, different things. It could be anything. Like I can also recollect like, so this was also in Mumbai. And there was some teacher, no names, some older teacher, and she was doing her thing. And the way she comes out of Vipridandasan bench is she comes and sits up straight up, and Gitaji sees it. And she's a teacher and a long-time teacher. So Guruji says, not Guruji, Geetaji says, Neeta, did you see that? I said, yes. And, she's a long-time teacher, so you don't want to say something because sometimes it offends. But anyway, so I said, yes. And then she laughs. If you or I said something to people, they'll say, these women are screaming. Because that's what our reputation is. Our voices are so loud, we are not ladylike. She didn't say that. From there, she just changes topics and she says, we are not ladylike. You know why? because we don't talk softly. We don't talk sweetly. We just say things. So there were times when she'll just say things and it's really, no, there was this closeness. Hitaji, yes. Many times there would be things I remember even back in 2000 when she was here, even in 96, when I think it was 96, right? Estes Park when she was there. All those times, yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a very good time. I mean, you could see that. With Prashantji by nature was very quiet. I mean, he talks a lot more today than he used to. But then again, it's the subject he's talking about. He's not talking about anything, generally. So it's different. But so with Prashantji, I don't remember talking as much from my end, but not that there was no closeness, but it was with Vitaji, I think she would be, there was a lot of times when she'd just talk things and so there was this closeness. So I remember even in 96 and 2000, yeah, I think one of the times, and she was saying certain things, she says, people, oh yeah, I remember the question she asked, she was talking was, why in the US or in the Western, that was, I think, her first visit out of India, Estes Sparkly.
It
But
may have been.
I don't know. Okay, and she says, because there were many women talking about menopausal issues, depression, and stuff like that. And I do remember her, and I said, Gitaji, and I tell her, the lifestyle is different. Indian women, Susan, this will blow you away. Indian women, when they find out, to this day, when they find out that, okay, they are not getting their periods, they're so happy. What a relief. In the US or the Western world, I would say it wasn't that, because women went through depression. Many women, I'm not saying everyone, many women went through depression, actual problems, which made them vulnerable, it seems. And so when Geetaji asked, and she was talking about it, and I told her the culture is a little different. And so when that came about, so I said, this is possibly what it is. And then, of course, she gives a lot of help to women, what to do, how to do, and things like that. I'm just saying is, so we would talk. It wasn't like we were close in that sense.
She was a wonderful friend at those times. She still remained our teacher, but when you had a certain relationship with her and she opened up, she was really fun.
Yeah.
Everything, all the other things had dropped away, and you're just sitting in the house and enjoying each other's company. She was
like a family at the time. Family, not like,
yeah.
she was a family when she was a family. True. And that was same for Guruji too, though.
Yes.
That was same for Guruji. Guruji comes home, I remember, and he was so exhausted. If I showed you the picture from Estes Park, or even other times it was fine. But when he came from Estes Park, he was completely exhausted. First of all, the amount of work he's put in, plus the elevation, and realize one thing, that Guruji was now left alone in some aspect, because every time people saw, sometimes they had to ask questions. And the questions were always regarding poses. Rightly?
Yeah.
So what happens? I mean, and it could be anything. Plus, realize just Estes Park, the elevation, forget everything. The elevation itself, the amount of, the oxygen, everything. I mean, it's different. Sure, Guruji was healthy in that sense, but we have to realize that he was tired. He was exhausted, not tired. Okay. So when he comes to the airport and when we come to pick him up, I mean, you could see Guruji is totally exhausted. And then once he comes home, I said, of course, my mother-in-law and my one son was home to receive them when he comes home. And right away, he's like, he just sits on the sofa, stretches his legs on the table, and then he says, I am home. Now, there are two things. He was really home for me, yes. But again, that how do you call it? That sensitivity to make me feel also. It wasn't just one-sided. Realize this. He also knew. So he just made you feel, I am at home. And he did that. He did that. And you just feel so comfortable. I mean, you always want to do everything, and you will do crazy things also trying to do everything, but that's immaterial. But he made you feel very comfortable. And yes, at that time when he is not in class, not that you talked anything, but he could talk anything. He could tease you. He could do everything. Funny. That closeness, that bonding. Yeah. It's amazing. But
When was Guruji in
yeah.
Minneapolis, Lee? I don't remember.
Sorry?
Well, so let's see, we are 2024. It was 1987, and it was August, about the 11, 12, 13, one of those days of August, 11th, 12th, 13th, for three nights or so. It was great. Like we say, I mean, it was the first time I had met Birju and Jawahar when they were coming off the plane, and I went and, told them, you guys need any help? And they said, we have all these books boxes of books we're carrying with us. We could use you to help with these things off of the plane. And as Neeta had said earlier, when I was rolling out rotis, which Guruji very patiently and kindly explained to me, these are not really chapatis. We call these parotas in India. And at the very moment Neeta walks into the kitchen, and he says to her, "Give this man some help with rolling something thinner." So we got to work together and learned that. And
it was just perfect.
it was just great. Guruji would make his way down where Kristen and I had our room down there, and he'd sit there with us and watch Walter Cronkite give the evening news, and he was just interested in everything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything. He was very open-minded. Think about it, Lee. Back in that era when women didn't, of course, they didn't even go out. They were, I know, going for the first time and the last time in my life I went to Bangalore was back in 72. At the time, I went on a bus ride because I had a friend from Mumbai and I wanted to, I like to explore. So I said, let's go on a bus ride. And we go on a bus ride. Believe it or not, on the bus, you have men sitting on one side, women sitting on the other side. And even if they are a couple, the men sit on men's side, women. This is 72. I'm talking about Guruji, who is born in 27. I'm sorry, not 27. Sorry. Yeah, I'm talking, yeah. But back in 2018, right?
Yeah.
20, yeah. And
19.
yeah, sorry. 19, yeah. My point is 27 is my mother-in-law. But yeah, so the point is back in that time, even in that time, Guruji being born there, can you imagine he taught classes with men and women together and bringing them to the same level, same pedestal, never thinking of one lower or higher than the other. And this is the unique thing when you look at from where he, the roots, from where he came from, how traditional his family was, how forward thinking he was. It is very unique. Today, it may be different, but we are talking about that many years ago. You see, and I know even when I was growing up in Mumbai, and even to this day, I have had some people stop by when they would come, older folks stop by to see my mother-in-law. And they'll say, oh, she's doing yoga, but you should not be doing Sirshasan. Sirshasan is not good for women. Women can never do Sirshasan. These kind of things. Why? Because they don't know enough. They are so ignorant. But Guruji brought all these things together, help people understand. And so for me, it's like understand how far ahead and what a forward thinker he was.
Nawaz's mother was the first to sign up for the public classes when Guruji offered them at the school in Pune.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Very first person to sign up for the public classes. And so with the same era that you're talking about now, probably 72 or so. Huh?
Yeah, Koli Dastu, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Kali.
So, Susan, it's just like he was a forward thinker, way ahead of his time. To tell you, yeah, I don't see people like that. Yeah. We are fortunate for sure, but think about, for me, it is more I mean, look at him. Look at him. How much he must have. I mean, to come from that background, which was what it was normal, to go to this level, to this heights, to be able to explain, I mean, get people to understand that no, this is, he didn't fight, but he actually slowly and gradually got people to understand, without saying much. He didn't give sermons on all these things. He never did. But he would just slowly and steadily take people, okay, the women are coming, take them, let them learn, So it's that way.
Well, I feel like we could go on and on and on. I feel so honored to be able to talk with both of you, and you have your special friendship. So it's
Oh
great to
my
hear
God.
you share
Yeah.
these stories. And, hopefully we can do it again.
Definitely nice to see you, Susan. I've been seeing you on Prashantji's talks, before he starts. Of course, I'm never around, but I listen to them later. But I do see you on those talks when I turn on. So I do see you. But Lee, I am really happy you came. Thank you so much. It just brings all the memories back, times, and just being with Guruji and everything. Because, I mean, many of my friendships are thanks to Guruji.
Yeah.
Everything, which includes even getting to know Arun, was through Guruji. So everything.
Yes. Well, it's my pleasure to see you.
Same here. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to On the Light. Today, I will close with this passage from Light on Life, page 145 on memory. Memory at the cellular level is at the service of intelligence in the form of intuition. At the conscious level, it serves initially as a reference library for intelligence, to be consulted judiciously and with scholarly detachment. When intelligence consults spontaneously with memory at each moment, then conscious intuition arises. And the word we give to conscious intuition is wisdom. There is another subtle way in which memory influences our lives without our realizing it. The imprints of memory at an unconscious level act as a filter to perception. Intelligence strives to see things as they are, but mind and memory tend to interpret these in relation to the past. The effect of this is imperceptibility to construct sandbanks of prejudice. We are all aware of how prejudice acts retrospectively. You see something and place a distorted value judgment on it. But prejudice also projects itself into the future, by which I mean that it influences us to see and therefore to experience only those things that will confirm what we already think. That is why I say it acts as a filter, eliminating anything that will challenge our entrenched beliefs. If you think that all foreigners are untrustworthy, then it is certain that you will meet lots of them who are, and you will never notice any of the others. Yoga calls this misperception, and it is a lot more dangerous and difficult to eradicate than simple misperception of misreading the number of your bus because you have forgotten your glasses. The yogic analysis of the workings of consciousness, supported by practice, enables us to live philosophically, deliberately, and wisely in ordinary life. And whenever life presents extraordinary challenges and opportunities, we will be prepared to handle those too. In the next chapter, we will continue our exploration of intelligence and how it can lead us to true wisdom. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.